Franz von Stuck was one of Germany's most famous artists of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. From an early age, he showed excellent drawing skills, and despite his social background as a miller's son, Franz was sent to the School of Arts and Crafts in Munich. From there, he moved on to the Munich Academy. In this period, he showed a growing sensibility for ornamental effect and an interest in mythological imagery, both important for his further career. His breakthrough came in 1889 with the painting Guardian of Paradise, exhibited at the Munich Glaspalast. 3 years later, in 1892, Stuck co-founded the Munich Secession, and 2 years later, he became a professor at the Academy. These events marked the increasing influence Franz von Stuck's art had in Germany. His symbolist imagery, for which he is best known, is filled with yearning for a world captivated by the beauty between heroism and hedonism. Peta. Franz von Stuck's art is filled with religious themes that diverge from the traditional Christian iconography in favor of a more symbolist expression. Stuck here paints a Peta, which is stripped of all conventions and, in its monumentality, simplicity, and stillness, captures the sorrow of Mary without her face being visible. The expression of emotion can be seen in Christ's tightly clenched hand and Mary's curled fingers. Both Jesus and Mary are rendered in profile, Mary in a strictly vertical position, head inclined slightly forward, face and hands. A sharply delineated halo surrounds her head in the form of a ring intersected by the upper canvas edge. Christ has no halo, being depicted merely as a dead man in the tradition of Hans Holbein. The muscle of his left arm is still tensed, the hand convulsed, bringing to mind the nails of the cross in Christ's passion. Christ's body bears the artist's features. As such, it has been described by art historians as a symbolist self-portrait. Guardian of Paradise. The Guardian of Paradise is essential in Franz von Stuck's art as a marker of his breakthrough into the Munich artistic circles. The work, a foundation for his mature art, was exhibited in 1889 at the first Munich annual exhibition. The Guardian of Paradise caused a stir because of its unusual technique and the new approach it took to the subject. It did not belong to the traditional current of historical painting or the popular peasant genre. It shows how Franz von Stuck's art comes closer to Arnold Böcklin and Max Klinger, considered painters of the soul and the mind, the English pre-Raphaelites, and the French Symbolists. The impasto, enamel-like explosions of paint behind the fiery sword are a reference to the sensory splendor of paradise. Stuck shows paradise sparkling with pink, light blue, and yellow. The transparency of the Guardian's garment and the radiant halo around his head has the exact unreal, symbolic nature. The model may have been painted naturalistically. Still, he has been transformed into the ideal of an androgynous youth, the perfect embodiment of the angel raised above humanity. Sin. Sin, made in 1907, is just one in the line of femme fatales disguised through biblical tradition found in Franz von Stuck's art. Stuck's best-known and perhaps most notorious painting has several variations. It is a quintessential image of symbolism that found a way into the works of other artists, and even as a center in the altarpiece of Villa Stuck, villa where the artist lived, and that he decorated himself. Stuck developed the visual idea of representing sin and vice by constricting the format and eliminating the surroundings. Inside the frame, taking up most of the space on the canvas, is a standing figure of a woman with a lascivious expression, recognized as Eve. She is visible only to the hips, and gazes towards the viewer while a snake wraps around her. There is a highly sharp contrast between Eve's pale white skin and the dark, slimy skin of the snake getting ready to bite. In Stuck's rendition of the first sin, Eve has already chosen evil and becomes one with the snake, devilish, attractive, and depraved. Innocentia. It would be wrong to assume that Franz von Stuck's art is only filled with the figures of deadly femme fatales. In Innocentia, painted in 1889, an androgynous adolescent girl gazes at the viewer with wide, dark eyes. She is at the transition point from childhood to adulthood. Her finely modeled face and dark hair stand out clearly from the light background, whose impasto surface suggests a curtain. The figure is clothed in an almost transparent garment, rapidly rendered in sketchy strokes. Like the face, the hands holding the lily stem are contoured. The lily leads the eye into the left half of the picture, where the two white blossoms begin to merge with the background. By employing the lily as a symbol of virginity and immortality, Stuck paraphrases the image of the Virgin Mary. The androgyny of the figure relates to the feminine ideal of the pre-Raphaelites. The image is interpreted as the personification of innocence, in whom awareness of her sexuality and power is emerging. Self-Portrait with Mary Stuck. This double portrait was created in 1902 and is based on two portrait photographs of the Stuck couple. This work earned Stuck the gold medal at the World Fair in Paris. Mary's pose, leaning against the artist's altar, part of Stuck's home, and Stuck standing in front of his easel, suggests a scenario where the painter is painting his muse. However, the artist seems absent, pausing in his work, lost in thought rather than observing. Mary Stuck, too, does not look directly at her husband, but instead over the top of the heads of imaginary viewers. Unlike typical portraits representing the social status of the artists, symbolists chose to show themselves as introspective and intellectual. The precisely curated scene enhances the meaning of the artist's portrait, his wife, and all elements of the studio setting. The artist's altar with a marble base and a gold-backed niche with an athletic statuette, the rear wall of the studio with a relief of the Serpentine Dancers, and the custom-made red chair, based on the artist's own design.